As a premier community in Hampton Roads, James City County strives to maintain a high quality of life for all citizens through sound fiscal management and legislative actions. In an ongoing effort to increase transparency, your Board of Supervisors holds public meetings to garner citizen input before making important decisions. Here's tonight's meeting agenda. Stay tuned. The Board of Supervisors meeting will begin shortly.
Call to order this meeting of the James City County Board of Supervisors. Mr. Stevens, please call the roll.
Mr. Hipple?
Here.
Mr. Hipple represents the Powhatan District and is Vice Chair to the Board. Ms. Sadler?
Here.
Ms. Sadler represents the Stonehouse District. Ms. Larson?
Here.
Ms. Larson represents the Berkeley District. Mr. McGlennon?
Here.
Mr. McGlennon represents the Roberts District. Mr. Eisenhower?
Here.
Mr. Eisenhower represents the Jamestown District and Chair to the Board. Sitting to my left is Adam Kinsman, County Attorney, and I am Scott Stevens, County Administrator, and it is my pleasure to be Clerk to the Board.
Okay, thank you. This evening we will have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and our pledge leader this evening is Finley Hooker Tidwell and of the Stonehouse. If she lives in Stonehouse, we will have Ms. Sadler from Stonehouse do the introduction.
Tonight's pledge will be led by Finley Hooker Tidwell, a 7th grade student at James Blair Middle School. Her interests include dance and theater, student government, and giving back to her community. She is the SCA historian at James Blair, named a Wavy TV Child of Change, and a member of the Kids Stuff Giving Honor Roll for the Children's Hospital of the King's Daughter. So after a moment of silence, if you'd lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening we will have a presentation, retiree recognition for Ms. Suzanne Mellen and Mr. Stevens, and Ms. Day will start this.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. So I met Sue Mellen a little over 17 years ago when I was the manager on James City County's financial audit. I recall the time very vividly because I was pregnant with my first child and I went into labor while I was here conducting the audit. Since that time, and before I came to work at the county, Sue and I stayed in touch and connected at conferences and as colleagues to discuss trends in the market and the economy from time to time. Now, having worked for her directly these past 3 years, I've come to know her even more. One of the first things that comes to mind when I think of Sue is her innate problem-solving abilities. When faced with a challenge, any challenge, her first instinct is, how can I help? what can we do? It matters not to her whether the challenge is directly related to finance or even the county. Her instinct is to leap into action and to help. This is such an admirable quality as public servants in our community. Just think of a world where everyone had that mindset. Sue has said that she hopes people do not think of her just as a finance person. Well, I think those of us who have worked with her during her 31-year career at the county would all agree that she is far more than that. A good leader knows that in order to be successful in achieving a common goal, you must have strong connections with people. Sue's ability to influence and lead have allowed us as a community to achieve so many accolades that we may not have otherwise achieved. Sue's creative ability to offer unselfish solutions because it's the right thing to do is a rarity. Sue, I could not be happier for you as you close this chapter at James City County and start a new one.
Well, good evening. I want to say I have the honor of recognizing Sue Mellen, our Financial Management Services Director, and again, a longtime dedicated employee of James City County who is retiring with over 31 years of service at the end of April. Sue began her career with James City County in December of 1987 as a senior accounting clerk. Then she was promoted to an accountant. Then she was promoted again to accounting supervisor, which evolved into the director of budget and accounting. And in November of 2005, she became the assistant FMS director. And finally, in January of 2015, she was promoted to the FMS director. In reviewing her personnel file, Sue was a good hire for James City County from the very beginning. She has been recognized by numerous supervisors throughout her career as an outstanding employee, receiving numerous merit pay increases and incentive award recognitions over her tenure here. And although not originally from this area, Sue was committed to making this community better, not only by working for James City County, but by being involved in the community. She has served as a community policy and management team member, has been a board member for Colonial Behavioral Health, Old Town Medical and Dental Center, and the Williamsburg Regional Library. She has been a commission member for the Colonial Group Home Commission and a member of Old Dominion University Public Administration Advisory Committee, and a graduate/participant in the Leadership Historic Triangle class of 2005. As a relatively new county administrator here in James City County, I had a lot of names to learn my first few days. Believe it or not, I knew Sue's name day one. There are probably a couple reasons for that, but one of them is Sue herself. She presents a pleasant demeanor and is always looking after the best interest of James City County, but she does have an opinion on how something should be done. And fortunately for me, and probably others, she's not afraid to share what she thinks, which I truly appreciate. She has been a big help to me, and for that I want to publicly say thank you, Sue. You really have helped me come a long way in my first 6 months here with James City County. Finances are a big part of local government and our role in meeting the community's need. So Sue and I have spent a lot of time talking about James City County finances and why things are the way they are. She has a wealth of information that she willingly shares with those interested in learning more about how we do what we do. She has created and managed a good financial plan. Her efforts have helped position James City County very well financially, and she led the county through the bond rating process in 2016, where we received a AAA bond rating from all 3 rating agencies, which is the best available rating a community can receive. This rating was reaffirmed last fall. Sue has done an outstanding job during that time in representing the financial interests of James City County. And while all of us can be replaced, some of us are missed more than others when they leave an organization. And Sue is one of those who works hard, gets a lot done, is well respected by our staff, her coworkers, and within the community. And she will be missed as she leaves this organization. Fortunately for me and James City County, she's planned for her retirement and has developed a great staff. So when folks are worried about how will the work go on, it will, but it's really because of Sue's legacy and what she's done to put that together. So Sue, on behalf of James City County, I do want to thank you for your 31-plus years of service. I wish you much happiness, success as you move on. I do want to say congratulations.
It's my pleasure to present you with this certificate. Hard it is sometimes. When it comes by all you have done.
Get you to scoot back just a bit so I don't. Sorry.
Okay, so the podium is mine. Thank you all very much. It's been a great 31 years. You've been my family. I have a lot of people to thank, and I can't do the Oscar speech because then I never remember everybody. But I had some really wonderful mentors that allowed me to always do more than my current job. And that meant a lot, and hopefully I've been able to do that also with others in the organization. Especially, I have to mention John McDonald, who I always gave him a hard time because when I started here, I had not finished my degree. And after I had my second child, and he was a year old, John sat me down and said, "You need to go back to school." And so I did, and I totally appreciate that my children allowed me to do that and take quite a few years to finish both my undergraduate and then my master's. But three things really stood out to me was leadership, stewardship, and collaboration. And he really instilled those values in me, and hopefully I have done it in others. I will miss the people the most, people that have worked for me, people that I work with, and people that I've worked for. That it's been wonderful, and I thank you all.
Jim, could we take a few minutes to say a couple of things about Sue?
Absolutely. I will open the mic. It's open mic that night.
I'll be short and sweet. Sue, thank you for a wonderful job helping us with all our financing. And I know you won't have any more worries of Adam putting any lamb juice on you while we're eating it at lunch one day. Thank you, Sue. Hope you enjoy yourself and hope you have a wonderful retirement and your next job in your career. I hope it goes wonderful, and I know you'll do well there. You've done such a great job for us. Thank you very much.
Sue, I just want to say thank you, and I also want to say how much I admire you for, back when I was on the school board, Sue Mellen's name was kind of like E.F. Hutton. If I heard that name, everybody got quiet, and we knew we better listen. So I feel like the job that you did stepping in when John unexpectedly passed away, I know that could not have been easy in any way, but you forged ahead and kept the county on the path, and you are to be really respected for that, because it's never easy to lose not only a coworker and a mentor, but a friend. So thank you for keeping us going right. Just the incredible contribution that you have made to the community and all the board service that Scott mentioned. And also what you set out to do for your personal goal with visiting the national parks. I just find that just incredible, and it speaks so much to your tenacious character. And I just liked hearing about all of your travels, and you really should be really proud of yourself that you did that. You set a goal and you met it, and you lived to tell about it. And lastly, Sue, I'll never forget going through a tornado with you in Richmond in the place where Silence of the Lambs was filmed. So we'll always have that. And we survived. So, but I will miss you terribly. And I want to thank you too for the grace that you showed me as a new Board of Supervisors member, and sitting down in your office and going through the budget and other things, and never hesitating to want to make me understand things, and not doing so by making me feel stupid. So thank you so much.
Well, I will echo that, Sue. We can't thank you enough for everything you've done for us. And that was one of the things that struck me the most as a new board member, how you took us aside and took us under your wing and guided us through the process, page by page if necessary, and helped us to understand how important the process is and how it serves the citizens, and the importance of how we're spending taxpayers' money. So you've made it clear and understandable for those of us who don't know bonehead math very much. But I will say, tornadoes aside, my fondest recollection and memory will be when we toured around with some of the agency members and trying to hold on to the bus while you're giving grand tours and keeping our AAA bond rating, shaking back and forth on that bus, and doing a superb job of representing the county. So thank you for everything, and don't be a stranger. Come back and see us. Best of luck.
I think almost everybody has said the things that I would want to say, Sue, about your performance here. Like Ruth, I just couldn't believe how seamlessly you moved in when John passed unexpectedly, and we never missed a beat because he had so much confidence in you, and you had so much ability to just learn from what you had seen and to so thoroughly understand the issues you were dealing with. I don't think I ever felt an instance in which there was a question of confidence in what you were telling us, and what how you were guiding us and seeing the options in front of us, not making decisions for us, but just providing us with the information that would allow us to make the right informed decision. You know, in so many ways, it's going to be difficult to see you leave, but we know that your style is the kind that shares generously your own talents and the limelight and the ability to help board members to understand, the public to understand, and everybody on our staff to understand where we are with our finances and how we can continue to make the county better. I think you can leave James City County with a clear understanding that you have made a difference in this community. And I look forward to working with you as you go up to VML and take on the position of Chief of Staff up there. I know you're going to do great things for them, and I'm just glad we're members and can benefit from that in some ways as well. The only thing I would say about it, Sue, is that while I think everything you were involved with here was very positive, I'm glad you didn't set as your priority to make us just like your old hometown of Buffalo. Only because of the weather.
Well, Sue, I will tell you that I'm most impressed by not only how you moved into the leadership position after John, but how well you have prepared the road for your departure, and how well you have prepped your staff. So I know we're going to miss you, but I feel confident that you have left us an organization that will, again, move along seamlessly. And I will tell you that I do really, really appreciate it, because I know every year I come back and ask the same question: where can I find something? And your patience with me of pointing out exactly where it is each year has been phenomenal. So I really appreciate that, and I'm going to miss you. Okay, we will now move on to public comment. And we have 3 speaker cards this evening. And as a reminder, we have a 5-minute speaking time, and the countdown clock is on the top of the podium. The first speaker this evening is Jack Fowler.
Good evening. Jack Fowler, 109 Wilderness Lane. Well, after that, I too, like Miss Sue, hound you. Most of you don't like me worth 2 cents because I stay on your case because I want to see things done to change and so the counter to be better than it is also. In my opinion, common sense and VDOT. Because of the time restraint, I'm going to start with my last one rather than first. When you leave here, go to 199 and go to Route 60, get off and go left toward Williamsburg. The whole road, over a mile, Eisenhower has photographs. Curbs and gutters are non-existent, and so are storm drains. It is a community character corridor. It is a designated evacuation route, and also we have a hospital that faces onto that road. Cross over to 143. Along the storm drain, you just don't have little saplings. You have trees and brush growing in it all the way to Newport News. Same thing, community character corridor, evacuation route. 199. Start right down here, go the whole loop all the way back around to York County. 4 to 5 of you are in that. Mrs. Sadler, sorry, it doesn't touch your district. If it did, it would be the same thing as I'm going to talk about. Storm ditches, shrubs, and trees in the ditches. Jersey wall, half a mile from here. Debris scattered all up and down it. On the side coming this direction, you have erosion problem. They have rock pile there. They hadn't finished it. I don't think they know how. Jamestown Road, 199. This is Larson. For a half-mile stretch coming back this way to that intersection and just beyond, you cannot see a curb or gutter. You cannot see the storm drains there. One lady had it in last word, one was in the newspaper, about the same place. Monticello Avenue, ironbound all the way out to Cromwell Lane. Curbs and gutters, storm drains. And where you first start is our courthouse. Old Town Road, from Route 60 all the way across. Curbs and gutters, pieces of the road missing. At the far end, we have a fire station. We have one of our county complexes there. We also have a cemetery. It's bad enough you lose someone that's a loved one in your family, but you got to go through where you can't see a curb and gutter because the leaves are that high. And then touched since they built the road the way it looks. Here we go. Route 60, go to the far end at Forge Road, next to the firehouse, and go east. Curbs and gutter, storm drains, culverts that need to be cleaned, standing dead trees in the center, 5 different places. Limbs, vines, and debris. There's vines hanging down, getting ready to choke. You won't go in a convertible, you'll get choked by the vines hanging down. The water bus stop right down by Captain George's, and the area for the bus to pull over to get out of the road. He stops in the middle of the road because there's holes that deep. It looks like the cluster bombs had been dropped there. I've mentioned this to about a half a dozen people. It's still there. The yellow solid line in the middle of the road. Part of the halfway of Route 60 You don't see it because the vines and dirts have grown out over it. About 2 foot it's grown out and grassed out over top of it. Needs to be cleaned back. Hadn't been touched in years. Right in front of the Bethel Restoration Place there's about 100 6-foot tall volunteer pine trees in about a 50-foot area. 5 or 6 more years, what kind of problem you going to have with that many pine trees and 50-foot strip there? There's churches along that road. Sorry about that. I'll be back next month.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
One quick thing before I go. Because of what I've mentioned and what I haven't, I asked for Mr. Carroll's resignation because he's gross negligent in his job.
Next speaker is Mr. Tim Trant.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Tim Trant, attorney with the law firm of Kaufman & Knowles, office at 4801 Courthouse Street, Suite 300 here in James City County. I am here tonight on behalf of Carter's Grove Associates, the owner of the property that, as I know you are aware, is the subject of board consideration item number 1. We have communicated extensively with the county about our concerns with the proposal, so in the interest of time, I will refrain from making further comments at this time, simply offer to be available to answer questions if you have those at the time the board considers that item.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trant. And our last public comment speaker is Ms. Peg Borman.
Good afternoon. I'm Peg Borman at 17 Settlers Lane in Lightfoot. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Kinsman, Mr. Stevens, Ms. Purse, and best wishes, Ms. Mellen. I'm here once more to talk about reducing, and that's to reduce the amount of trash that we've been generating. And if we just all cut back a little bit, it'll make a big difference. And we need to reuse everything that we can. Be creative and try to use things 2 or 3 times before you trash it. And recycle. Yes, we still need to recycle. And I have a press release from Monica Bowinger for the Virginia Recycling Association for March 18th, and I'm just going to give you an excerpt out of it. But it says, to discontinue curbside cycling will have a greater economic impact than you might think, because the recycling industry in Virginia creates jobs and sustains other local businesses. And the repercussions of scaling back or discontinuing the program would have a lasting effect on our local economy. Many people think of recycling as a green environmental activity, but these economic facts will illustrate that it's a business just like any other. Like soybeans and wheat are commodities and tradable market value. If the wheat drops, we don't suggest not buying bread again. And why should we do that with recycling? It's a cyclable industry. Markets rise, fall, and rise again. And the market conditions currently have created opportunities for innovation and investment. Companies are seeking to invest domestic markets for these materials. And the raw materials are a valuable link in the chain that provides natural resources to them and raw materials to manufacturers while reducing their environmental footprint. Companies like Coca-Cola has recognized the value of recycling the aluminum cans. And I could go on, but this isn't about whether recycling is a good idea. It's about our economy and our livelihoods and our environment. But that's not all I came to talk about. I want to remind you that April 13th is our 41st annual spring cleanup. And I've been around since it began in 1979, so I know what I'm doing out there most of the time, and there's lots of trash. But this time I'll be at Jolly Pond, so you all come see me at Jolly Pond, and I'll take it and put it away for you. But first of all, it's not too late for people to get involved, and I'd like to remind the citizens out there, if they'd still like to get involved, I'll still get them involved. Just let us know where you would like to help us, and we'll put you in a place where you can clean up. But I really want to just thank you. Each one of you have helped us get to this point, and all the citizens that are out there that have helped us to try to keep our county clean. And a lot of our citizens have already been out this month cleaning up different areas of the county, and will be all month, even into next month. As the roadways have been looking pretty bad, and when the winter goes away and spring beds out, we don't want the trash to bud with it. And most of all, I want to invite you all to come to Veterans Park and help us celebrate after the cleanup. It'll be at 4:30 Saturday afternoon, April the 13th, at Veterans Park. And we're gonna celebrate with a picnic. We have activities for kids and adults alike. We're gonna have lots of food. We have DJ Robert Hodge from WMBG will be there to entertain us. And so please come and see us and celebrate with us, and let's keep James City County clean. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Borman. Okay, we are now down to the consent calendar, and tonight's consent calendar consists of number 1, minutes adoption, and number 2, dedication of streets in section 4 of the Whitehall subdivision. If no one wishes to pull an item for discussion, can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay, Ms. Sadler. Mr. Stevens, please call the roll.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel? Aye. Mr. McGlinnan? Aye. Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion
Okay.
carries.
Thank you. We are now to our public hearings, and before we start the public hearings, I would like to recognize Planning Commissioner Haldeman, who's here representing the Planning Commission for this evening. We will call him up for the Planning Commission's input on each one of these as we go. At this point, Ms. Sadler, I believe you need to open the public, open the meeting for the Service Authority.
Okay, I don't have a gavel, so I'll use my knuckles.
Okay, here, I'll
So call the meeting to order of the James City Service Authority Board of Directors. Mr. Powell, please call the roll.
Mr. Hippel.
Here.
Ms. Larson.
Here.
Mr. McGlinnan.
Here.
Mr. Eisenhower. Ms. Sadler.
Here. Are we opening our public hearing now? Or
Yeah.
are you going first?
We will have the, do we?
Open ours now?
You should go ahead and open both
All right.
public hearings
Open public
simultaneously.
Then we will be opening our public hearing on fiscal year 2020 James City Service Authority budget.
Okay, and at the same time, I will be opening the public hearing on the county's FY 2020 budget. And presentation for the budget will be by Sharon Day and Doug Powell. Okay.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Tonight's presentation will provide the highlights from the County Administrator's fiscal year 2020 proposed budget. The county has a 2-year budget plan that allows the Board of Supervisors to adopt and appropriate funding for the first year's budget for immediate implementation, as well as provide a plan for the second year. The second year allows for changes to be made for new developments. Tonight, we will present on fiscal year 2020, which is the second year of the biennial budget process. Fiscal year 2020 begins this July 1st, 2019, and will end on June 30th, 2020. The proposed budget continues to incorporate the strategic plan goals to ensure funding is allocated based on the board's priorities. The budget proposes the addition of 14 full-time equivalent positions to staff, which I will speak to in more detail. Also included is funding to enhance the overall compensation package provided to our employees. The county's technology infrastructure has seen drastic improvements over the past couple of years, and funding is included to maintain those systems, as well as to replace our financial software system. In addition, the budget proposes that the recycling program transition to a fee-based program during fiscal year 2020. A new development that was not included in the fiscal year 2020 plan relates to recycling. Due to changes in the international trade market, the net cost of the program has increased drastically to the contractors providing pickup services. The county is changing recycling contractors effective July 1st, 2019. For the first quarter of 2020, the county will pay for the recycling costs while the county prepares to transition to a fee-based program. The transition efforts will include community outreach and education, software programming, and preparing for billing and collection. Beginning on October 1st, 2019, residents that wish to continue curbside recycling will pay a fee recommended at $7. Although tonight's presentation will primarily focus on the county's general fund, which is the county's main operating fund, the fiscal year 20 proposed budget allocates funding to 7 other funds and to the James City Service Authority. These funds include a capital fund, which includes both county and school projects, a debt service fund to account for our outstanding debt obligations, several special revenue funds, which are used to account for some rather substantial federal and state grants that the county receives to provide services to our residents, including our social service programs, our housing and neighborhood development programs, probation and pretrial services, and our tourism activities, all of which are vital to our community. In total, the fiscal year 2020 proposed budget for all county funds and the James City Service Authority is $247 million, which reflects a decrease of $8.9 million from fiscal year 2019. Most of the difference is in the capital fund, which varies year to year depending on the level and the significance of the individual projects. Taking a deeper dive into the general fund, or our operating budget, the total general fund fiscal year 2020 proposed budget is $211.8 million. That reflects an increase of 2.9% over the current year 2019 budget. It also only reflects a 1.3% increase over the fiscal year 2020 plan. In terms of the funding sources, or the revenue side of the equation, the vast majority of the county's revenue is derived from real estate and personal property taxes, equating to $137.1 million, or about 65% of its total budget. Of the overall $5.9 million increase in the general fund from fiscal year 19, the majority is from general property taxes. Fiscal year 20 is a non-reassessment year. Therefore, the increase is attributable to anticipated growth and delinquent tax collections as a result of collection efforts implemented by the treasurer. The proposed budget includes no changes to the real estate or personal property tax rates. The next largest contributor is other local taxes for $28.1 million, or about 13% of our budget. This category includes items such as the sales tax, the additional 1% historic triangle tax that was implemented this year, and it also includes lodging and meals taxes. The other category includes charges for services. The proposed budget includes slight fee increases in recreation center memberships, before and after school programs, as well as summer camp, and in the recovery fees for our ambulance transport services provided by the fire department. Also included is the proposed fee for service for recycling, which is expected to generate about $1.4 million in revenue that will in turn pay for the estimated expenditure increases. The proposed budget continues to incorporate the 1% additional historic sales tax, which was effective again in 2019 as a result of Senate Bill 942. As you may recall, the additional sales tax excludes groceries. The legislation required that 1/2 of that revenue be provided to the Tourism Council and be used specifically for tourism purposes, while the other half is remitted to the county to be used at your discretion. The portion the county retains is estimated at $4.6 million. And as we did in the fiscal year 2019 budget, the 2020 proposed budget earmarks a majority of that funding to one-time uses. This includes $1.5 million for school capital as well as operations, $1.9 million for a master plan study, several capital maintenance projects, and a set-aside for future land and facility needs, $955,000 for one-time costs for police officers, police vehicle replacements, as well as to replace our emergency radio system, and $162,000 for project management over surety bonds and pictometry. Now turning to the other side of the equation and looking at the expenditure budget, the county's operating fund is broken down into functional categories, also known as departments. At $110.5 million, the school division receives the largest portion of the budget at about 52%. The funding covers both operations as well as debt service. The fiscal year 20 proposed funding represents a $2.3 million increase from 2019. However, due to limited resources, it does not fully fund the school's request. Public safety receives the second largest allocation at $29 million, or about 14% of the budget. These two areas combined comprise 2/3 of the budget. Of the remaining 1/3, 18% goes to all other departments, and 16% is used to fund capital projects, debt service, funding to our outside agency partners, and transfers to other funds. To further demonstrate how the money is allocated, for every dollar collected, 66 cents goes to schools and public safety, and 34 cents is split between all the other areas of the county. In thinking of the budget as one would their checkbook, we wanted to demonstrate how the money gets distributed. The average home in the county is valued at $330,000, which would generate $2,772 annually, or $231 monthly in real estate tax. Of that $231, $120 goes to schools, $32 goes to public safety, and $79 goes to everything else. The county's strategic plan contains 7 goals, and I will highlight some of the more significant allocations of resources from the budget to address several of the operation initiatives that are tied to those goals. First, in terms of modern infrastructure, $2.8 million is dedicated to various stormwater projects. Work has begun to replace our 20-year financial software. A continuation of funding for this project is included in the fiscal year 2020 CIP budget. A new system will allow for a much-needed streamlining of information between various divisions. It'll allow for data analytics, and it'll present information that's more meaningful and improves transparency. Included in Parks and Recreation budget is funding for the replacement of existing fitness machines and new supplies and equipment to outfit the expanded space previously occupied by Centera. And then funding to conduct a facility master plan study is also included, which fulfills one of the strategic plan initiatives. Transportation planning has allowed the county to secure over $100 million in funding for various county projects. A continuation of funding at $1.5 million is included in the fiscal year 20 budget. Every 5 years, the county updates its comprehensive plan. The county will get further underway on the update by forming the community participation team to oversee community engagement efforts. Funding's been provided for scenario planning and revisions to the fiscal impact model, which is a joint effort between the planning and finance departments. Tourism is a major focus at both the state and the local levels. The increased state sales tax legislation is directly related to the perceived need to expand tourism marketing efforts at the regional level. James City County is focused on improvements to county facilities used to generate tourism to our area. Funded by tourism dollars, the fiscal year 20 capital budget includes $185,000 for utility improvements to the Ambler's House at the Jamestown Beach site. Also funded by a portion of the county's tourism revenue, this budget includes $333,000 for improvements to Jamestown Beach. And planning for improvements to the James City County Marina property has been a county priority for a few years. There are basic improvements that need to be made to improve the safety of the boat facilities and the shoreline. Capital funding of $1.7 million has been included to achieve these objectives. During fiscal year 20, the budget allows for the county to continue to move forward to two important public safety initiatives. Resident calls for services are up significantly, as are response times to high priority calls. The budget includes funding for 3 police officers that, when combined with the 3 new police officers in the 19 budget, will provide for a total of 6 new positions. Adding 6 patrol officers will help address the demand by creating a 6th police zone. For the fire department, funding for a 6th fire station is included in the 5-year capital plan, with design money allocated in fiscal year 2020. In order for the station to be fully staffed once constructed, the phasing in of 18 new firefighters over multiple fiscal years is necessary. 6 positions were added in 2019, and an additional 6 are included in the 2020 budget. In terms of high-quality education, the school board requested $3.3 million in additional operational support, and the proposed budget funds $2.4 million of that request. For capital projects, $2.9 million has been provided for various capital maintenance projects, including refurbishments, roof repairs, HVAC replacements, window replacements, parking lot repairs, and equipment replacements. Also included is funding for the design to expand War Hill High School and for the design of an auxiliary gym. Funding is included in future years for the expansion of all 3 high schools and for the addition of an elementary school in fiscal year 2023. In 2018, a classification and compensation study was conducted for the county. The implementation strategy for the study's results was a 2-year phased-in approach. In 2019, the salary ranges for positions impacted by the study were brought up to the minimum amount, and any move towards the market was capped at $750. The remaining move to market impact of the study is included in the fiscal year 20 proposed budget and would be effective on July 1st, 2019. Effective on October 1st, 2019, the budget includes a 1% cost of living adjustment and an average 2% general wage increase based on evaluations of all eligible employees. On the benefits side, funding has been allocated to share in the increased cost of health insurance and to enhance the retirement benefits offered to hazardous duty employees, which was approved during fiscal year 2019. These compensation adjustments enable us to continue to offer a comprehensive compensation package that will allow us to be competitive and remain competitive in the marketplace. To discuss James City Service Authority's 2000 budget, I'll turn it over to Doug Powell, General Manager.
Thank you. First and second goals of the county strategic plan, sustainable water supply and modern infrastructure, facilities, and technology systems are the focus of the FY20 James City Service Authority budget. Highlights of the budget that support these goals include continued contributions to the Alternative Water Supply Fund and the Repair and Replacement Fund, putting aside funds for future needs. The budget will, operating budget will fund 60% of debt service, up from 40% in the current fiscal year, as part of a gradual plan to eventually fund all debt service from the operating budget. Culmination of the water meter register replacement project. The proposed budget includes significant contributions to the White Oaks area water main replacement project and the sewer system improvements as part of the DEQ consent order. In addition, there's one new position proposed in the budget, a utility account representative, which will assist with our transition to monthly billing from quarterly billing once the meter register replacement project is complete. In addition, I would also note that while not a big financial expense, the rebate program is something that gets a fair amount of attention. The budget does recommend increasing funding for that program from $25,000 a year to $40,000 a year, and would also make nonprofit housing agencies eligible to participate in that program. Incremental rate increases are recommended in accordance with the 2015 rate study. The proposed rate changes are on this slide. I won't read all of them, but as you can see, the adjustments to the water rates are more significant than they are on the wastewater rates. I would say that the total monthly water and sewer bill for a typical 5,000 gallon per month residential customer would increase by $3.10 per month under this proposal, from $38.95 per month to $42.05 per month. This combined bill would remain the second lowest in the Hampton Roads region. I just close by saying revenue estimates were modified based on current year expenditures and also the potential for reducing the irrigation schedule to twice per week beginning in May of 2020. And I will turn it back over to Ms. Day for her closing remarks.
In closing, I wanted to mention there are several upcoming budget work sessions as well as meetings. First, we have our neighborhood forum, which is this Thursday, April 11th at 6:30 p.m. That forum will be held at the James City County Recreation Center. We have 2 work sessions coming up. First is on April 23rd. The next is on April 30th. Both of those at 4 p.m. Here at the James City County Government Center. And finally, the budget adoption is scheduled for one of the regular meetings on May the 14th at 5 p.m., also here in James City County Government Center. I also wanted to mention that the county administrator's detailed proposed budget document is available on the county's website at www.jamescitycountyva.gov. That document contains summary information in the front as well as very detailed information throughout the document. And if there are no further questions, as a reminder, the board has opened the public hearing and will need to close the public hearing both on the county budget as well as the service authority's budget. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Day. We will have the public comment for the public hearing from the county first, and then see if we have any for the service authority. We have 4 speakers this evening for the county budget. The first speaker is Karen Schumacher.
Good evening, Chairman Eisenhower, members of the board, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Kinsman. Good evening, my name is Karen Shoemaker, and I reside at 119 Elizabeth Harrison Lane in the Jamestown District. I'm here this evening to ask that funding to resurrect a land protection tool like the once viable Purchase of Development Rights program be included in the fiscal year 2020 budget. I served as Executive Director of the Historic Virginia Land Conservancy from 2001 until 2017, the end of 2017. I had the opportunity to work with Michael Drury, an attorney that the county hired in 2001 to develop the materials and implement a PDR program here in James City County in 2002. The county and the Conservancy worked together to hold educational sessions for landowners. We even did an old-fashioned barbecue up in Toano that drew a record crowd of interested parties. Back in those days, the funding for the program came from a dedicated 1 cent from every property tax dollar, and another cent went to green space acquisition. The 2 programs worked in sync for land protection tools. We quickly realized that the dedicated funding could not generate enough dollars to purchase the development rights if all the properties in the queue came to fruition. So in 2005, the Board of Supervisors placed a $20 million board bond referendum on the ballot that included dollars for PDR, green space acquisition, and parks and recreation. The voters sent a very strong message when they passed that at 78%. James City County was a poster child for PDR. It was revered throughout the Commonwealth, and we really do, I think it's fair to say that we put PDR on the map. A significant $6 million of the bond money was used to purchase the Vermilion property, which includes the Ambler House, campground, and the marina that was just discussed. The purchase was done in partnership with the Trust for Public Land, who was able to secure grants and other funding mechanisms to secure the additional $6 million of the purchase price. Communities that conserve land are making a wise investment. The vision statement for the James City County Comprehensive Plan recognizes the importance of leaving the county in good shape, economically, socially, and ecologically for the generations to come. There are those intangible benefits of land conservation that can be experienced by a community, and there is clear evidence from numerous studies that demonstrates protecting open space can generate economic benefits and improve the local tax base. Land conservation helps communities protect the bottom line in 5 key ways. Number 1, reducing the tax burden on residents, as in reducing the cost of community services. Number 2, improving property values. Studies find as much as 15 to 30% increase in the value of properties adjacent to parks and open space. Number 3, attracting business investment. There is a strong link between community character and economic development. Number 4, reducing spending on infrastructure. It is more cost-effective for a community to maintain open space, which can control flooding, filter water runoff, and help mitigate air pollution, than to invest tax dollars in expensive infrastructures to achieve the same function. And number 5, promoting healthy lifestyles and public health. Research has shown a link between being outdoors and better health. Everything from improving cognitive performance after spending time among trees and greenery to decrease stress levels when exposed to beautiful parks and outdoor spaces. Well, it seems like a no-brainer to me. Land conservation in James City County is paramount to our future. A program dedicated to landowners, many of whom are land rich and cash poor, can help them monetize their land in a way other than selling it for development. It can make all the difference for the present and for the future. And after all, isn't that what the county wants? Resurrecting and funding a land protection tool, such as the Purchase of Development Rights Program, is a wise investment for today and certainly for tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Next speaker is Mr. David Allen.
I think Karen said all of it, but I'll add a little bit. My name is David Allen. I live at 2001 Bushneck Road on Nettles Creek Farm. After operating a business here for 15 or 20 years, my wife and I, and driving through the community constantly, bought a farm on Bushneck Road and moved here 14, 15, 16 years ago. Having both been raised in the country, my wife and I were drawn to the rural nature of the county, especially its beautiful farmland, timber, and of course the Chickahominy River. We wanted more than anything for our farm to be preserved. However, as parents, we realized we owed a fiduciary responsibility to our children and grandchildren to preserve our assets. The PDR program, which monetized the development value of the property, our property, allowed us to do just that. It's a great program. With the right team in place, a good PDR program will preserve for all time what is rapidly vaporizing our wonderful rural way of life. I urge you to support the funding of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Next speaker is Mr. Tom Hitchens.
Good evening, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Eisenhower, and members of the board, and Mr. Kinsman. My name is Tom Hitchens, and I reside at 350 Thompson Lane in the Powhatan District. I'm here to ask that the fiscal year 2020 budget include the dollars to get a landowner conservation program like the former PDR program up and running again. Let me tell you why I think this is important. I am a lifelong resident of James City County. I was raised on a farm when the population of this area was only 6,500 people versus the 75,000 that we have now. It was a rural community and a wonderful place to grow up in. I never left, didn't want to. I've owned a 35-acre parcel on Gordon's Creek since 1985. Every day I enjoy the beautiful vistas of the water, timber, and wildlife. Eagles, geese, wood ducks, mallards, osprey, and more. Right now it is in the yellow season, as I call it, on my farm. We have the daffodils, the forsythia, and even the dandelions. Soon to be followed by the red buds, the azaleas, dogwoods, and marsh grass. It is so beautiful, it'll take your breath away. I am not an anti-growth person. I would say I am a protectionist. What I mean is that if we grow in the wrong places, that takes away those special rural lands, places where wildlife is abundant and the trees stand as tall filters for our waterways. The character of this community will be lost forever without that. People that come here to live have found the same beauty and peace that I grew up with. Tourists that come here for a visit do so because we are different than other places along Interstate 64. There is a natural beauty and history that makes us special, and we must do everything we can to make sure we don't lose that which sets us apart. We must act before it is too late. A program that can provide landowners with an opportunity to monetize their land and keep it for future generations is critical to maintaining our rural lands. Acting today to protect our sensitive land just makes good sense. A landowner conservation program like PDR would be one more tool in the county's land protection toolbox. Thank you for your time and seriously considering funding a program that will leave the county in good shape for present and future generations. Thank you.
Sure. And our final speaker for the county is Patrice Sadler.
Good evening, Chairman Eisenhower, members of the board, Administrator Stevens, and Mr. Kinsman. I am Patrice Sadler. I am the Executive Director of the Historic Virginia Land Conservancy. Our office is located at 5000 New Point Road in James City County, and I am here tonight to reinforce the importance of a landowner conservation program, and I want to voice my full and absolute support for its funding in fiscal year 2020 James City County budget. More specifically, the protection considerations laid out in recent articles appearing in both the Virginia Gazette in January of this year by Jack Jacobs, as well as a WI Daily article in March by Sarah Fearing, outline mutual goals for the Conservancy and the county, an effort to create a county program that would involve land protection. A James City County supported program that seeks to protect conservation values and resources in the county remains a mutual goal and is fully supported by this organization. Protected land leads to healthier lifestyles and a boosted immune system, evidence now exists. In fact, the Japanese deemed the term tree bathing to describe the tranquility of being surrounded by trees and the positive effect it has on human well-being. Positive economic impact, public benefit, better water quality, overall human well-being are all winners of land protection and lead to a healthy and productive community. Most importantly, protection of the county's conservation values is what the citizens have said they want. The Comprehensive Plans Community Participation Team reported that as far as growth, almost 80% of citizens felt it was better to preserve farmland than to develop it. The county and the Conservancy are proven partners in land protection and have been for many years. Almost 1,500 acres are protected in James City County. We celebrated together recently the end of a marathon joint effort that also included the James City County Economic Development Authority, where the Conservancy is now the proud holder of the conservation easement to Mainland Farm, protecting 214 acres of the oldest continuously cultivated farm in America. Citizens bike, walk, enjoy the viewscapes, all while listening to the birds. If there was a tool, such as a purchase of developments right program, more lands could be protected and more natural, scenic, historic, and agricultural land could be preserved. The county and the Conservancy could continue their record of successful collaborations that have had an impact and will continue to ensure that future growth does not negatively affect the character and ambiance of our beautiful community. Another example of a successful past collaboration is the tree canopy between Governor's Land and Barrett's Ferry Road, what we refer to as the Route 5 buffer. About to be clear-cut, the Conservancy and the county worked with residents of Governor's Land to raise funds to purchase the buffer, which creates a beautiful tree-lined highway. These efforts deliver perpetual results and greater public benefit. The Conservancy looks forward to working with the county to implement a successful land protection program. Land protection is critical to a vital and healthy community, and the budget decisions made today will benefit citizens for generations. We care deeply about protecting those special lands in James City County forever, and respectfully ask that the fiscal year 2020 budget include funding for this critically important effort. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, that's the last speaker for the county's portion of it, so I will close the county's public hearing, and we will move to the Service Authority. Do you have any?
Are there any speakers for the public hearing, JCSA? None? Okay, then we will close our public hearing.
Close the public hearing, and then I would suggest you entertain a motion for adjournment of the Service Authority meeting.
For adjournment until 4 p.m. on April 23rd, 2019 for our regular meeting.
Motion. Mr. Hippel.
Aye.
Ms. Larson.
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan.
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower.
Aye.
Ms. Sadler.
Aye.
Thank you.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Hey.
Mr. Chairman, let me just mention, having heard the comments today and referring back to an earlier discussion that the board had about purchase of development rights, I think it was clear that the board is very interested in examining the opportunities for purchase of development rights. And so when it comes to that portion of our discussion of the budget, I will be looking to find out how we can, within the constraints of the budget as presented, address those concerns, and if we need to make adjustments to the proposed budget in order to be able to thoroughly develop a plan for purchase of development rights and strategize on how best to implement that plan.
I'd agree with that.
Okay. All right, our next public hearing is to an ordinance to vacate a portion of an unimproved right-of-way in the Williamsburg West Subdivision. Ms. Parman?
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. County residents Brian and Francis Saxton and Zachary Miller are requesting a vacation of a 0.1825 acre portion of right-of-way adjacent to their properties at 104 Lexington Drive and 102 Lexington Drive in the Williamsburg West subdivision. The applicants also wish to purchase that portion of right-of-way, and staff recommends a purchase price of $1,500, which is 25% of the assessed value of the land. This portion of right-of-way is unimproved. It has not been accepted into the state highway system, and the county's planning division advises that no inconvenience will result if vacated. Therefore, before you is an ordinance to vacate that right-of-way conditioned on the applicant's payment of $1,500.
Okay. Questions for? Yeah. And we'll open the public hearing. And Mr. Haldeman, did this one have any? Came to you? Okay. I wasn't sure whether it did or not. Okay. Thank you. Do we have any speakers for this one? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing, and I will look to the board for a motion. I will note that this is in my district, and this was originally, I think, intended to be a connection to Ford's Colony, which it now could not be, and I think it's going to be very beneficial because I know it's been a contentious point in the neighborhood in the past, so I clearly support it. Any board comments or
Motion for approval?
Motion for approval.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Number 3, an ordinance to amend Section 2.15-1 of the County Code, authority to obtain criminal history record information for employees. Ms. Parman again.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, before you is an ordinance to amend Section 2-15.1 of the County Code. I will note this is largely a housekeeping measure. Currently, Code Section 2-15.1 authorizes the county administrator to obtain criminal history record information on county employees and applicants. It does not require submittal of fingerprints and personal identifying information as required in the Virginia Code. The absence of this requirement has caused some administrative hurdles, especially for the fire department when requesting this information. The proposed amendment does not change county policy on criminal history information checks. It only alleviates some administrative hurdles, and it brings the county code in line with the Virginia Code. Therefore, I recommend approval of the proposed ordinance.
Questions for staff? Open the public hearing. Any speakers? Close the public hearing. Look to the board.
Move the ordinance.
Okay, we have a motion.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Ms. Larson? Aye. Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Okay. Number 3, an ordinance to amend Section, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. SUP 19-0004, James City Service Authority College Creek Pipeline Project. Ms. Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Mr. Mike Gaffney of Rummel, Klepper, and Call have applied on behalf of the James City Service Authority for a special use permit to allow for the installation of approximately 1,100 linear feet of a 14-inch water main. The proposed water main will be located under College Creek along the south side of Hummelson Parkway eastbound bridge. The project is within VDOT's right-of-way, which is zoned R5, multifamily residential, R8 rural residential, and R1 limited residential. The property is designated low-density residential on the comprehensive plan land use map and is located in the primary service area. The current water main is located along the north side of Hummelson Parkway westbound bridge and is in need of major repair and rehabilitation. This water main was installed in 1976 when water lines were a permitted use in accordance with the issuance of a conditional use permit. However, staff was unable to locate this permit in county records. The proposed water main will handle a larger capacity of water than what is currently in use, therefore it would not be considered a maintenance project. The current ordinance also requires a special use permit for water lines that are located outside a subdivision or other approved development. Simultaneously, the county will also be co-locating a fiber optic cable which will enhance the county's communication system as well as serve the Williamsburg James City County School Division. Staff finds the proposal to be compatible with the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, and surrounding development. On March 6th, the Planning Commission recommended approval of this application by a vote of 6-0. Staff recommends that the board approve the application subject to the conditions in the resolution. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant and JCSA are also available. Thank you.
Questions for staff? Mr. Alderman, I believe we do have you on this one.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the Planning Commission considered this application at its meeting on March 6th. It was a brief discussion. As Ms. Costello already mentioned, we unanimously recommend approval. The only concerns were the tree buffer between College Creek Estates and 199, and we were assured that no mature trees would be removed and that any tree removal would be kept at a minimum. We also discussed the marshaling of equipment, which would be, of course, unavoidable, but temporary on the west side of the pipeline. And that was really about it.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Holloman? Okay, thank you. Okay, we will open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers on this one? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and look to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I will tell you, first of all, that I received a number of calls about this particular notice because people thought that this must have applied to some place interior to the one of the subdivisions in nearby area, and I had to reassure them that no, in fact, this was actually where the work was going to take place, and I think it's an important project for us to get done so that we can modernize that section of pipe. So I'll be happy to move the resolution adoption.
Stevens, we have a resolution, a motion.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. All right. We are now down to number 5, ordinance to amend sections 10-4 and 10-5 of the county code, maintenance of premises and recourse of county upon failure to maintain. Mr. Melton.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Joe Melton. I'm currently a legal intern with the county attorney, and I'm a second-year law student at William & Mary Law School. I'd like to thank the county attorney for having me in his office and giving me the valuable experience and allowing me to continue my education, and I thank the board for having me here today. So I'm presenting some proposed amendments to Chapter 10 of the County Code, Section 10-4 and 10-5 concerning the maintenance of private property and the recourse of the county for failure to maintain. These amendments are largely housekeeping amendments in light of changes to state law, which happened since 2011 when this ordinance was last reenacted. Some of the changes to state law include, there are 3 major changes, one of which was that previously James City County had specific authority to enact this ordinance, but now any county that has less than 500 people per square mile can enact this ordinance and regulate any land that's in a platted subdivision that's zoned for residential, business, commercial, or industrial uses. The second major change was that it specifically restricts any county from using this ordinance to regulate any property that's in an agricultural use. And I'll note that includes any land that's zoned A1. The third major change to state law is that it adds running bamboo as a type of plant growth that can be regulated under this ordinance. And in light of these state law changes, some of the changes to the county code is that 10-4C is being struck since it is largely redundant. 10-4B reflects the changes to state law. 10-5, Section 10-5, which allows the county to have recourse for any failure to maintain, is largely edited to reflect those changes in 10-4. Therefore, I'd recommend the board adopt the recommended changes to 10-4 and 10-5, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for
this is literally housekeeping in a sense. So, Mr. Mellen, thank you very much for your presentation. Is your sense that this is the result primarily of the state legislative changes, or is there any additional power that we have as a result of this?
So it's primarily a result of the state law changes since 2011. There have been a couple of different amendments throughout the years, and it's just now come up and it's reflecting these changes primarily. In fact, if it changes the authority of the county, it kind of restricts the authority a little bit.
Well, that's a surprise to the state.
But so yeah, that's my thought.
Thanks very much, and thanks for your work with the
Thank
county
you.
office.
Okay. No questions of staff any further? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Any cards? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. The board for discussion or motion.
Chairman, I'll move the ordinance.
Mr. Stevens, we have an ordinance.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Okay. We have AFDs, and I believe the way we can do this is we're going to get the presentation on all of them and vote on them individually. So it will be AFD 0286-2-2018 4450 Ware Creek Road, Croaker Edition, AFD 18-0016 365 358 and 382 Ivy Hill Road, Mill Creek Edition, AFD 18-0017 9888 Sycamore Landing Road, Croaker Edition, AFD 18-0019 4920 Fenton Mill Road, Croaker Edition, and AFD 18-0020 8328 Diascund Road, Mill Creek AFD addition. And making the presentation will be Ms. Olaf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. During the course of the recent renewal of the county's agricultural and forestal districts, staff received 5 requests to add land into the AFD program. All 5 of these requests were reviewed by the AFD Advisory Committee at their January 24th meeting, and at that time the committee voted unanimously to recommend approval of all 5 additions. At its March 6th meeting, the Planning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of 2 of these applications, including a request to add 52 acres of land located at 4928 Fenton Mill Road to the Croaker AFD, as well as a request to add 14.18 acres of land located at 4450 Ware Creek Road to the Croaker AFD as well. At the same meeting, the Commission voted 5-1 to recommend approval of the remaining 3 requests. These applications included requests to add 62.35 acres of land located at 9888 Sycamore Landing Road to the Croaker AFD, and separate requests to add 10 acres of land located at 8328 Diascund Road and 60.73 acres of land located at 358, 365, and 382 Ivy Hill Road into the Mill Creek AFD. Staff finds that all of the applications to add land to the AFDs listed on tonight's agenda meet applicable criteria for inclusion into the existing AFDs, and recommends that the Board of Supervisors approve the additions: AFD 1816, AFD 1817, AFD 1819, AFD 1820, and AFD 2-86-2-2018, subject to the conditions listed in the respective attached ordinances, which were adopted with the renewal of the Mill Creek and Croaker AFDs earlier this year. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for staff? Okay, thank you. Mr. Haldeman, you want to bring us up to speed on the deliberations with the Planning Commission?
Hello again. As mentioned, several of these were approved unanimously, and 3 were approved by a vote of 5-1. The consideration on the ones that were approved 5-1 had to do with concern whether a property that was undevelopable or partly undevelopable due to steep slopes or other problems with the property should be included in an AFD, or if they were unsuitable for agriculture due to poor soils or the like. The majority felt that other considerations were such as protection of watersheds, protection of aquifers, providing wildlife habitat, protection of view sheds, and so forth, were more than enough reason to include these properties in the AFD. So hence the 5-1 recommendation for approval.
Questions for? Thank you, sir. Okay. Now, I guess we can open the public hearing. I want to make sure we do this correctly.
Mr. Chairman, you can open up the public hearings for all of them.
Okay, we'll open the public hearings for all of them. Are there any speakers on any of them?
There are not.
Okay. And then we did it right, at least. I closed the public hearing. Thank you, sir.
You'll have to vote on the
we'll vote on them individually, yes. Okay, so we have closed the public hearing, and we will look at the number 6, it's AFD 02862-2018 first. And we'll look to the board for a motion on that one.
Motion for approval.
Motion.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next is the AFD 18-16, 0016. Looking for a motion.
Motion for approval.
Another motion for approval.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
AFD 18-0017.
So moved.
Okay. Ms. Larson this time.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
AFD 18-0019.
Motion to approve.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And finally, AFD 18-0020.
Motion for approval.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just out of idle curiosity, I wonder if maybe anybody in staff can answer the question of whether there's any financial benefit to inclusion in an AFD if the property is undevelopable. It is pure idle curiosity. So.
I'm sure anybody on community's development staff could do that. Ultimately, that depends upon the application and the annual process with the Commissioner of the Revenue's Office. But if you're interested, we're certainly happy to pursue that for you a little bit more.
I'll just ask the Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to add, as the liaison to the AFD committee, I would just like to commend them for doing the excellent job that they do in reviewing these parcels and taking a fine look at all these different properties. So I just want to commend them for everything that they do for the county, because it is a volunteer group, and they give up their time to serve, and we appreciate them very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sadler. Okay, number 11 on our public hearings is an ordinance to enact a user fee for curbside recycling collection service. Ms. Boone.
Good evening, Chairman Eisenhower, members of the board, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Kinsman. The county's existing regional contract through the Virginia Peninsula's Public Service Authority expires June 30th, 2019. The cost of recycling has historically come from the general fund at approximately $500,000. As a result of the changes in the international trade market, net cost has increased drastically by approximately $1.3 million. The county is a community committed to sustainability. We want to continue to provide the service to our citizens and do our part in improving the quality of our recycling and to divert as much waste from our landfills as possible. With that said, VPSA, along with the 4 participating jurisdictions, want to ensure our materials are being recycled. The new contract includes provisions that the contractor is required to submit a monthly marketing report which provides details of collected materials and identifies their markets. The sample report which VPSA has received from the new contractor gives a high confidence that the collected material will be recycled. After much discussion, staff has chosen an opt-out option as this gives the program the best success rate. Towards the end of June, the current contractor is on schedule to pick up the carts. The new carts will be delivered soon after so that there is not an interruption in service. There will be a bag of knowledge hanging on the new cart containing information on the changes. General Services staff, along with the City of Williamsburg, York County, Poquoson, and VPSA, are working hard on community outreach, and our staff and volunteers are available to attend community meetings to educate residents. The Treasurer's Office will be performing the billing and will be billing on a quarterly basis. As previously mentioned by Ms. Day, the county will pay the cost during the transition period July 1st through September 30th. The bills for the quarter starting October 1st will be mailed on August 15th with a due date of September 15th. There will be an option for participants to pay for the entire year. Staff is proposing to move to a voluntary fee-based system for residents who wish to have curbside recycling. Staff recommends a recycling fee of $7 per household per month, effective October 1st. Staff continues to work on offering a discount to HOAs and hope to have that pricing soon. We are not recommending that you take action on this item tonight to allow time to discuss during the budget work session. If there are no questions, as a reminder, the Board of Supervisors will open and close the public hearing, which immediately follows this presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
The question that I had, you answered, which was about, that has been what I've gotten the most feedback from, is that there's a real concern that the recyclables are going to end up in the landfill. So I appreciate the efforts that everyone is going to do our best to ensure that that does not happen. Right. The other question that I had was, I think Ms. Borman also brought it up, and I've also been questioned about that. This is, do you see any, and I'm not sure that you would have yet in the discussions, but any movement towards some new job opportunities or some new recycling innovation coming because of a result of all of this? And you probably maybe haven't heard of that yet.
I don't necessarily know exactly what they are. I know that there's been multiple discussions through HRSD HR Green, and also some of the recycling conferences that staff is attending, having those conversations and seeing what's out there for us to consider.
Okay. And then the other question that I brought up, I believe, earlier, but has also come up as well is, what is the Commonwealth? What action have we seen in Richmond? Because we cannot possibly be the only 5 localities. This is a big issue, and wondering if the Commonwealth is discussing this on some things that might be done on the state level. I know that quite a few people have mentioned to me perhaps a deposit on bottles, which is what they do in some states, and where you pay 5 cents when you check out from the grocery store, but you get that 5 cents back when you take them back. But that would take a bigger initiative than we can do here on the local level. So I'm wondering what are you hearing?
I think all those discussions are happening, and I know Dawn's here tonight, and I don't know if, Dawn, you have anything further to add to.
On down.
So there's an annual Virginia Recycling Association conference in May, and several of us are going, and so we'll be part of those conversations. And they're conversations that are had every year, but now all of a sudden this is a priority. So just, rest assured that we are part of those conversations, but I don't have any new information to share with you tonight.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me thank you both for, this has been a lot that you've had to do in a short amount of time, and I really appreciate it. And also thank our citizens, because I know that there's been a Berkeley resident that has reached out to you all with a lot of questions, and you actually talked with her, and she's helping us kind of work out some bugs, I guess, that questions that we didn't anticipate. So I very much appreciate that. I also just hope that, yes, the Commonwealth will take an active role, because recycling seems to be very important to people, and I'm glad to hear that, because I've been concerned that when it comes to $7, people are just going to say, oh, I'm not going to pay that. What I hear is, I will pay that because it's important to me to take care, be good stewards of the earth, but I want to make sure that my recyclables are really being recycled. But what's the long term? What's the plan moving forward? And so I look forward to hearing what comes out of these the continuing discussions, and then out of the conferences that you're attending. So thank you.
I just want to add on to that, again, I appreciate the tremendous amount of work that you both have put into all of this, and work with other staff on figuring out some alternatives. I'm still not enthusiastic about a fee, and would prefer something that actually was covered through the operating budget. But for this year, I don't think we're going to be able to do that. And I think it is going to be important for us to recognize that this is a moving target. And from what I understand, it's an issue that's hitting not just Virginia localities, but localities all across the country. And a lot of that has to do with Chinese government's decision about not accepting certain items for recycling. And that just heard a report the other day that Chinese companies are buying American closed paper mills in order to begin providing opportunities for recycling some cardboard and other materials here in the U.S., which they can't do in China. So the good news was that that suggested that there would once again be a market for recycled goods. And I think we ought not to lose sight of one other matter, and that's what Ms. Borman reminded us of, that the ultimate key is to reduce the amount of waste that we're producing, and that would go a long way toward meeting all of our goals. So anyway.
Okay. I only had one question, if you actually. When we talked about the billing cycle, we said, first of all, that for the first quarter we were going to be using general fund money, then we would go to the fee for service for the remainder of the year. Is it anticipated in the following year that the entire thing would be funded by the fee, and that there would be no general fund money going in like there is this year in this year's budget?
That is correct.
Okay. Secondly, the billing is going to be done monthly, but is there an option for people to pay quarterly or semi-annually or I think annually? I think you mentioned, but I mean, what kind of options are available to people on that?
So it's quarterly billing. The option would be that you're able to pay for an entire year.
Okay.
We're going to have it through the website, treasurer's office, satellite services.
Okay. So it will be quarterly billing then, but then you can pay. Okay.
And
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just to add on, you could pay quarterly, you could pay for 6 months, you could pay for 9 months.
Okay,
Or you could
that's-
pay the full 12 months.
that's
It's sort of
perfect.
whatever a resident would choose to pay.
Choose to do.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that at that point, was there no more questions? We will open the public hearing, and is there any speaker?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we will close the public hearing, and we will take no action tonight because this will be part of the budget work sessions.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. At this
Thank
point,
you.
on the request of the board members, I think we will take a 5-minute break before we go into board considerations. order. Our next is board consideration C-18-0123, HRSD treatment plant expansion within Carters Grove AFD. Ms. Sula.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The Hampton Roads Sanitation District currently operates the Williamsburg treatment plant located at 300 Ron Springs Drive. This is a landlocked parcel that is wholly surrounded by 250 Ron Springs Drive and the Carters Grove AFD. HRSD has stated that it requires a facility expansion adjacent to the Williamsburg treatment plant. The expansion is in response to a federal enforcement action taken by the EPA and the Department of Justice. The HRSD has stated that there is insufficient property on their current parcel to accommodate the facility expansion, and as such has stated its intent to acquire a portion of 250 Ron Springs Drive by condemnation for public utility purposes. HRSD originally proposed to acquire the entire 76-acre parcel, but since the Planning Commission meeting has reduced its request to 53 acres. HRSD is not requesting a withdrawal of property from the AFD or any approvals for the facility at this time. As discussed during the AFD renewal process earlier this year, state code provides additional protections for land inside of AFDs in regards to issues of eminent domain. Per state code, utilities may acquire interest in properties within an AFD, provided that the Board of Supervisors, in consultation with the AFD Advisory Committee and the Planning Commission, reviews the proposal and specifically examines the following 3 criteria. 1, the effect that the action would have upon the preservation and enhancement of agricultural and forestal resources within the district and associated policies. 2, the necessity of the proposed action to provide service to the public in the most economical and practical manner. And 3, whether reasonable alternatives to the proposed action are available that would minimize and avoid any adverse impacts within the district. In consideration of the first criteria, HRSD has stated that they will reduce clearing impacts to approximately 7 acres of the 53 and would not need to remove all acreage from the AFD. Undeveloped portions of the parcel and the resources therein would be preserved in the AFD and subject to AFD regulations. The Carters Grove AFD would be able to maintain the minimum required acreage for a district should some or all of the 53 acres be withdrawn. No changes to the current AFD ordinances or policies are proposed. Addressing the latter 2 criteria, the proposed action is in response to a federal enforcement action taken against HRSD, and the proposed facilities would provide a service to the public by alleviating groundwater shortages in the Hampton Roads region. Given the landlocked nature of the HRSD parcel, staff finds that there is no practical way to avoid action within the Carters Grove AFD if the project is to be completed in the most economical and practical manner possible. Should HRSD pursue a nearby non-contiguous parcel, they would still need an access and utility corridor through the subject parcel, and per HRSD's estimate, this would increase capital costs. At its January 24th meeting, the AFD Advisory Committee voted 5-1 with 1 abstention that the proposal did not meet the listed criteria and that it would have an unreasonable effect on the resources within the district, is not necessary to provide service to the public in the most economical and practical manner, and that there are reasonable alternatives to the proposed action. At its February 6th meeting, the Planning Commission voted 5-2 to recommend that the proposal did meet the criteria, that it would not have an unreasonable effect on the resources within the district, is necessary to provide service to the public in the most economical and practical manner, and that there are no reasonable alternatives to the proposed action. Staff notes that should the board also find the proposal meets the aforementioned criteria, the applicant would still have to come back through the AFD Advisory Committee, the Planning Commission, and the board again to actually withdraw the applicable land from the AFD. Staff recommends that the Board of Supervisors adopt the written findings presented in the staff report and find that the proposed action will not have an unreasonable effect upon the resources of the district, is necessary to provide service to the public in the most economical and practical manner, and that there are no reasonable alternatives to the proposed action, and that the action will not have an unreasonable adverse effect upon either state or local policy. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Questions for staff?
Not at this time.
I do have one question, please. The federal order, when was that issued?
I will defer that to the HRSD representative.
Ted Hennepin, General Manager, HRSD. The consent decree was originally entered into court in 2010. We are just have responded with our proposed plan in October of 2017 and have not gotten approval yet.
Okay, thank you.
And can I follow up on that and just ask, have they indicated a deadline by which you have to act in order to meet the consent agreement?
So the proposal, in our proposal, was by 2030 have the groundwater pieces completed and the discharges reduced into the Chesapeake Bay at that point. And then another 20 years to do the rest of the work under that.
But there's no specific deadline that applies within the next year?
Not until they approve that plan, yes, sir.
Okay.
Further questions? Right. At this point, board for discussion.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd be interested in hearing from the landowner or representative, if that would be all right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Chair, members of the board.
So we're making a decision this evening on this criteria that was mentioned earlier. I would just like to hear your position on this criteria and the potential loss of the 53 acres and how that would affect the property.
Sure. I guess I would just preface my remarks by saying that I think the decision that the board has been presented with tonight has been presented in sort of an unnecessarily difficult way. It's sort of a decision between two lofty and mutually exclusive virtues, sustainability of the public utility system on the one hand versus environmental stewardship, rural lands, and historic preservation on the other. And I don't think it has to be that way. In any event, with regard to the three criteria in response to your question, Ms. Sadler, I would say that the first of those three criteria is the effect that an action, that the action would have upon the preservation and enhancement of agriculture and forestry and agricultural and forestal resources within the Carter's Grove AFD and AFD policies. It's the landowner's position that the confiscation of 53 acres would clearly have an adverse effect, confiscation by a public utility would clearly have an adverse effect on the preservation of agricultural and forestal resources within the district, particularly when, based on HRSD's own submissions, that they have indicated they only need 6 to 7 acres for the SWIFT facility. HRSD has alleged that the additional acreage is necessary to protect the facility that they have in place, and that it's willing to place the additional acreage that they're taking in a conservation easement or some other stewardship program. We would submit that's a convenient soundbite, but is not based in reality. I mean, number one, the current owner, Mr. Minkoff, has proved himself to be an ample steward of the property. Two, there is no present erosion of steep slopes or shoreline that is threatening the existing facility. HRSD has an easement for their outfall now. There's substantial revetments already protecting the shoreline. Mr. Minkoff is working to extend those revetments across the entire frontage shoreline of Carter's Grove property. HRSD can condemn a conservation easement, so it's not a permanent protection. They can also withdraw land from the AFD at a future renewal cycle without public input. And HRSD's stated purpose is the SWIFT facility. And if they need more land in the future for other purposes that they've stated, then they can and should be required to come back and make those justifications if and when those circumstances arise, and shouldn't be able to grab 53 acres for hypothetical future needs now, just what they need for the SWIFT facility. The second criteria is the necessity of the proposed action to provide service to the public in the most economical and practical manner. We would humbly submit that taking significantly more land than is actually needed now is substantially more expensive and is not the most economical and practical manner to acquire land for the SWIFT project. Third is whether reasonable alternatives to the proposed action are available that would minimize or avoid any adverse impacts on agricultural and forestal districts in the Carters Grove AFD. We believe that an adjacent 24-acre parcel that's been identified, which is not located in an AFD, has been determined to be, with the support of Carters Grove, substantial support of Carters Grove, a reasonable alternative that would substantially minimize the adverse impacts on the Carters Grove AFD. So it's our humble and respectful position that the proposal that HRSD has before you fails to meet any of the statutorily prescribed criteria.
Follow up, if I may. So, if you're allowed to talk about this, where are you now in the negotiations with HRSD regarding the original 6 to 7 acres that was stated that was needed? When I was at the AFD committee meeting, I recalled, the discussion about the 7 acres. So, I'm just curious where you guys have landed with that.
With the
negotiations on that 6 to 7 that was stated that was needed.
Be careful about what I'm able to say in a public forum. So what I would say is this: to reach a solution in a difficult situation like this with seemingly competing virtues, I think it involves necessarily compromise, rolling up one's sleeves, and understanding the needs of the other side, and being willing to make compromises that allow the goals of both parties to be achieved. Let me be clear, we support the goals of the SWIFT project and have spent tens of thousands of dollars on wastewater engineers and environmental scientists to try and understand their needs, independently evaluate those, try and find a way to address them without losing 53 acres of our property. We believe, in response to your question, Ms. Sadler, that the statute requires the exploration of alternatives. So we believe, in our conversations with HRSD, have been focused on the alternatives, not the original concept of 6 to 7 acres. And we think that's where the solution best lies. We have not rejected the concept of 6 to 7 acres, but there are some conditions upon that, the use of that property that would have to be met for that to be the solution.
And just one other thing for this layperson with erosion and revetments, could you please explain what they are and what Mr. Minkoff, what his proposals would be to protect that shoreline that's right there?
Sure. In one of the drawings that staff presented, you can see sort of at a very high view some elbow-shaped riprap or stone, large stone barriers that are out away from the shore in the water that protect wave action or protect the shoreline from erosion by wave action. Those spines or elbows, riprap elbows, are considered revetments, and Mr. Minkoff's proposal is to extend those revetments along the length of the Carters Grove shoreline to add further protection, not only for the HRSD property, but for the Carters Grove National Historic Landmark.
That's all I have for now, I think.
A couple. When Colonial Williamsburg owned the land and HRSD put their plant there, they put a buffer around it. And it was about time I was working for Colonial Williamsburg. And the buffer was designed so that no one could see the plant, basically, as much as possible. And to hide the plant from Kings Mill, from Carters Grove, and any neighboring areas around that. And I know with Carters Grove owning that buffer around there, the extensive work they've done, not that HRSD will not continue the good work, because all the groups involved in this have been working very hard. And I want all of them to know that and I've been in touch with all of them, and the board knows it, and they've been trying to work to solve this situation. and get it all taken care of. And everybody's been trying to do everything they could with the, the limited time we've had. And I thank each and every one of them for their efforts. But that, it worries me with the buffer that's around there, and that Kings Mill may see something. You may see something from the river. You may see something from Carter's Grove. And I know if we only need 7 acres, and we're taking, and we were taking, or we were being asked for 76. Now we're down to, I think, 53. Thank you. And they cut that back down to give, hearing that, the buffer for Carter's Grove and trying to protect that buffer as well. I think the group is I'm hoping they're very close to working out some type of deal. And I know time is always an essence, and time is money. And HRSD is trying to protect and their money as far as how much we're spending on the project, and that's good stewards of their funds. So I appreciate that, but I'm a little concerned with the amount of take that we're taking.
In particular, the 53 acres still, would have the substantial negative impact of cutting off our access to Grove Creek, which is sort of a historic and important part of the character of the National Historic Landmark, the Carter's Grove National Historic Landmark. And so severing that connection is pretty significant in terms of the impact on the use and function and value and history of that property. And again, we believe that there's a reasonable alternative just through the woods that we're willing to cede property rights and substantial amounts of money to identify as a solution.
Now, with and I'm sure all of us have visited Carter's Grove, and did the owner of Carter's Grove give a certain amount of land to HRSD for a portion of, I guess it was a well site? Did I get that correct when we toured out there?
That is correct. I don't know the details, Mr. Hipple, but I do know, and partner Paul Gerhardt can elaborate more, but I do know that in recent history, since Mr. Menkoff has been the steward of the Carter's Grove National Historic Landmark, that there was an easement conveyed or some dedication of land for an expansion of the HRSD facility. It's sort of a grassy, or actually got gravel on it, but the grass is growing through it, area along the access road to Grove Creek.
Okay, so we've got a cooperation of the two working together, each one of them helping, the other and trying to come up with a solution. And I'm sure they'll keep on, because the three involved are definitely good, stewards of, and respect each other as well, so. Okay.
There is a history of cooperation there, yes.
Sorry, just to tag on to that, if I may, are you referring to the area, because I think we all probably have toured out there, where you go down the road right there, and the plant is there, and then is it infrastructure that comes across heading to the adjoining property? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, right on the left.
Okay.
That's correct, yeah, on the road headed, I guess it's sort of north from the Carter's Grove sort of property down towards Grove Creek, where on the left there's an open area. It's a graveled area that's now growing up with it's got grass growing through it, where you get your the most noticeable view of the facility of the HRSD facility. It's that area is the vicinity of the more recently conveyed property.
Okay, thank you, sir. Other questions for staff? If nobody else has one, I have one for staff. Actually, I'd probably address it to Mr. Kinsman. Mr. Kinsman, our packet includes two alternatives, either one resolution sort of yes and one resolution sort of no. I would like to make sure that we understand and the public understands what the process is in each case, because what I was understanding now is that if we said yes, that this does not actually take the land out of the AFD, that then there is a process where they have to come back and go through the Planning Commission and back to the board to physically do the removal.
That's correct. Your yes would just, it deals with whether or not you make those particular findings that are required in the Virginia Code about adverse effect, primarily adverse effect to the AFD resources. So
Okay.
if you adopt the first resolution, which is on like page 287 of the Adobe, and I'll make sure you guys do the right one, whatever one you want, it says that you find that it doesn't have those unreasonable effects. The other one says that you find that it does have unreasonable effect.
And in the event we find that it does have unreasonable effects, the process that then ensues, understand?
Effectively say that you come back here and do this again, but after a public hearing.
Okay. And there's a 60-day time frame involved with that, then a public hearing. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we, however, wherever you'd like to insert this, I do know Mr. Taylor, who is the chair of the AFD committee, is here. I don't know if he'd be willing to come up and talk about what their findings were.
Sure. Yeah, I would ask by the committee to come forward. Good evening, board members, Mr. Stevens and Mr. Kinsman. My name's Chris Taylor. I currently serve as chair of the AFD board committee. At our last meeting on January 24th, the committee was informed by staff that would be charged with making a recommendation on whether the proposed action by HRSD to acquire land at 250 Ron Springs Drive, located at the Carters Grove AFD, by condemnation for public utility purposes might have an unreasonable and adverse effect upon the preservation and enhancement of agricultural and forestal resources located within the district and associated policies. In a 5-1 vote, our committee found that the action did have an adverse effect based on the following 3 criteria set forth by the state of Virginia. Criteria 1, the effect the action would have upon the preservation and enhancement of the agricultural and forestal resources within the district and associated policies. We felt that the property HRSD would take is acting as a buffer to a very historical landmark. HRSD originally proposed to take 76 acres. Now we understand it's reduced to 53, which we're happy about. But originally we were told that they needed 7 acres for the plant expansion. And the land is currently being protected. So our feeling as the AFD board was, why take it if you don't really need it right now? I felt that was setting a bad precedence. The second criteria, the necessity of the proposed service to the public in the most economical and practical manner. We certainly our board was in agreement that the HRSD offers the most needed service to the public. But we didn't feel that acquiring such a large amount of land was the most economical and practical when it was currently not needed at this time. And the third criteria that we were asked to evaluate it on was whether reasonable alternatives to the proposed action are available that would minimize or avoid any adverse impacts within the district. The majority of our board felt that a much smaller piece of land take would be sufficient. Of the 7 acres for the construction of the new SWIFT project, there was less land, less impact is kind of the way the board that we looked at it, the committee looked at it. There's also, we were told, there's a 24-acre parcel located to the adjacent HRSD plant that is not in the AFD and was available. I don't know the behind that all the logistics, but that was what we were told at our meeting. And finally, you know, I am, and the members are part of the AFD committee, and we try to promote and encourage the use of the AFD to promote preservation of property in the county. And to be honest, we all felt by voting to allow a sizable amount of the property that was currently in the AFD to be condemned, that we would be voting against one of the layers of protection that we promote when landowners come to us and want to enter into the AFD program. So that's kind of where we stood with that, just because we represent the AFD in James City County and think that's what we had to do, our part. Any questions?
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any board discussion?
Chairman, I'll start off some. Here's a concern that I have. You know, this particular piece of property is not just associated with this particular application. It's also one that figured quite prominently in a case that was recently before the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C., related to the placement of power lines across the James River. It is a National Historical Landmark, and in that case, it was clear that to the judges hearing the case that the Army Corps of Engineers did not follow proper procedure. And my concern in this case is that we have a set of requirements set out in the code, and that from my perspective, it does not appear that we have seen those followed precisely either. And I just find it compelling to suggest, as the AFD committee put forward, that there are some other options to be investigated, and there are other alternatives that might provide opportunities. And so it seems to me that we at least ought to follow the procedures appropriately to allow for there to be a public hearing, allow for the opportunity to fully investigate these issues, and then if it turns out that this is the most reasonable and appropriate step to take, we have that option to do so at the stage after we've had the full vetting of the proposal, the full evaluation, and the opportunity for the public to participate in this particular case. So I would be inclined to adopt the second resolution provided in the staff packet. So I'll move that if that's the, that we adopt the resolution.
You have any other?
Well, I just wanted to, having heard and been at the AFD meeting, I do have concern with the first criteria about it, about the commitment that we make to protecting, that layer of protection that the AFD provides. And my concern is that we would be compromising that protection. Criteria 3, as Mr. McGlennon said, there apparently is an alternative site that is not in an AFD. So I think I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Taylor and with Mr. McGlennon that I would be supportive of the second resolution as well.
Larson, do you have anything?
Nope.
The only thing I will add is that I do thank both parties for engaging in productive or negotiations. It did result in a decrease in the amount of the land take. But I still feel that the amount of land being proposed in this is in excess of what is needed to do the project. And that there are two really good public needs competing here, and I think that we really need to look at trying to minimize the amount of disruption to this AFD to allow anything to go forward, and I don't think we're at that point yet. I think Mr. McGlennon is exactly correct. The adjacent piece of property that's not in the AFD, I think, is a potential, but I think it's maybe unlikely based on the asking price being well above the appraisal. But I do think that there is the opportunity for them to look within what exists around the plant to try to do this in a much tighter footprint, and I would think that might be more appropriate. But as it stands right now, I can't support it either.
And I'll echo your comments, Mr. Chairman, that I think that this is an important project.
Yeah.
It is. And that we very much are supportive of the project itself and hope that there can be a resolution that satisfies the parties to a much greater extent. This is not a very long period of time that this additional process would take and give us a much better level of confidence in whatever the final proposal is as to whether or not we will be making the right move.
And I would concur with that, Mr. McGlennon. And, having been out to Curtis Grove and spoken with HRSD, and it seems like everyone's tried to work as diligently as they possibly can to come to a resolution. I think The second resolution would provide us with a little bit more time to be able to analyze it a little bit more and to make sure that everything is as tight as possible for such an important project. So, thank you.
And I do agree that if you go to a public process, that the public then has the opportunity to weigh in, which is something that they've not had really the opportunity on this. Okay, we have a motion on the floor, sir.
Mr. Eisenhower, just to clarify, just for the record, because we keep talking about the second resolution. The
Resolution that would find that this does not meet the conditions for withdrawal.
That's correct, and it has the be it further resolved clause where the
Yes.
board orders that HRSD not take the proposed action for a period of 150 days.
And that staff prepare for a public hearing.
That's correct.
That's the one.
Mr. Hippel? Aye. Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. We are now down to initiating resolution to consider amendments to County Code Section 24-16. Mr. Kinsman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board will recall, back in the 2016 session of the General Assembly, a number of changes were made to the proffer laws such that the board felt that continued acceptance of residential proffers was no longer acceptable. A lot of work has been done in the interim, and at its current session, the General Assembly made a number of changes to the proffer laws, some of which appear to address the concerns that the board brought up back in 2016. What I've put before you with the Director of Community Development, Paul Holt, tonight is a resolution, an initiating resolution that directs staff to take a look at the new proffer law and determine whether or not any changes are warranted to that section of the county code and any of the policies that had previously been rescinded. So if the board desires that we go and take a deeper look at all of this, I recommend that you adopt the attached resolution. Happy to answer any questions you may have, and Mr. Holt is here as well.
And if I could just say a word on this particular initiating resolution. This does relate to this new proffer legislation that I think in general, local governments would agree is not perfect. But it is at least an effort to recognize the damage that was done in 2016 by the legislation that was approved and to move in a more positive direction. I think that the hopeful sign of it is that the parties that will ultimately have to come together to make decisions about what is reasonable land use planning and what tools should be available to us is opening up. And we may have the opportunity, for instance, to look at the question of whether the state will move toward a system of impact fees so that by right development can also be subject to some contribution to the cost of growth that they create for a community. That would significantly benefit us because currently it's only in cases where we are making a legislative decision that we can accept residential proffers. It would also benefit the building community because it would mean that the cost per unit would probably come down significantly and be spread more fairly across both units that are in by right and legislatively rezoned properties. So for those reasons, I think that there's some hopefulness to it. And I think that the legislature will be looking to see whether localities are at least trying to work with this new system. And so I think a good faith effort is a reasonable thing to ask for. If we ultimately decide it doesn't make sense for us to make changes, then that's fine. And if we feel like we need to suggest to the General Assembly that there are additional changes that need to be made, I think that's fine as well. But I think initiating this process would be a positive signal to the Commonwealth and to the General Assembly that we appreciate their openness to some dialogue.
I would just follow up and say thank you, because you and your high growth coalition that you're in charge of, I know that you all did a lot of work to even get us, well, it's not perfect, but to get this somewhere. So thank you for all of your efforts. I would move.
Hey, we've you have a
move the motion.
Move the okay.
Resolution.
Resolution.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Board requests and directives.
I don't have anything tonight.
What?
Yeah.
You must not be feeling well. So I just have a couple of things. One is that actually the day after our work session, I participated in a panel discussion with the superintendent of schools, the chair of the school board, and a principal from Jamestown High School at the Williamsburg area realtors. And it was a lunch and learn with the real estate community where we talked about schools and the county and city investment in schools, but it overall allowed the school system to sort of talk about the great things that are happening in our school system and how important that connection with the real estate community is as people start to come into our area and move here. And it lasted almost, I think, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and with an agreement that the county would not come back to this one, but perhaps as we've talked about tonight with the expansion of high schools and with the new elementary possibly coming on board, when there is some movement towards redistricting, going ahead of that to talk to the realtors about that and how they might help in that effort, because so often people want to buy in a particular neighborhood because of perceived about one school over another. And one thing that did come out of that also, there was a real estate agent who talked about her experience with moving as with a military background, and what some other school systems have as far as liaisons, where they can pick up the phone and call one number and get some information about the community and about schools. And so the school system right then and there committed to doing that and seeing how they could start doing that in WJCC. So that was one thing that already came out of it that I hope will be helpful. So, and I attended the grand opening of the Harris Teeter. Mr. Stevens was there, Mr. Snipes. This one is on Route 5. This is the second store in James City County and the third in the greater Williamsburg area. So, and it is in space that was previously occupied by Farm Fresh. So, very excited to have them back open. Thank you.
Well, this past Saturday, even though it was freezing outside, I attended Foxwire Farms' annual shearing of about 90 alpaca, and sent some of y'all a photograph of one of those poor babies. It sounded horrible because they screaming Mimi's laying down there, but they assured everyone they were just really perturbed and they didn't like it, but it was fascinating, and they did an amazing job. They had tour buses. They were loading folks up at their boutique that they have on Richmond Road and bringing folks out. Kids were having a blast, and so they were shearing them and grinding their teeth. It smelled like quite a dental office in there, and clipping their hooves. And Mr. Valentine does a phenomenal job. So a shout out to him and thank him for really boosting agritourism up in the upper end of the county. He incorporated homestead nurseries to do landscaping and is trying to partner in other agritourism businesses up in that end. So, and please go and visit their boutique on Richmond Road. They use the fiber to make a lot of the clothing that they have there. So, They did a fantastic job, and it was really fascinating to watch the whole process. So that was the big thing that I went to, along with a lot of other things, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I just have three quick things. A couple of weeks ago, I attended a meeting at Hampton University of the Peninsula Consortium on Workforce Development, and the Southside equivalent, a meeting that brought them all together, or all of us together, for a demonstration of the fact that we are increasingly working cooperatively and collaboratively to address the workforce needs of the region more generally. And so it was a very positive, enthusiastic meeting, and I think that everybody came away with a sense of commitment to that effort. Secondly, I wanted to make mention of the fact that a resident of the city of Williamsburg, but who had a profound impact on many in James City County as well, passed away, Mrs. Bobby Alexander. Bobby was a teacher in our school system for a number of years, teaching mathematics, but she was also very well known for her involvement with the annual Martin Luther King Breakfast of the NAACP, which recognized young scholars in the community and benefited the NAACP's Act So program, which basically highlights the creative and artistic talents of young people in the community and enters them into a national competition in which many of our students have excelled over the years. Mentioned Mrs. Alexander's passing at the age, I believe, 94. And finally, this morning, I had an opportunity to help celebrate the volunteer activities at Williamsburg Regional Library, and was joined by our county administrator at that event, which really highlighted the activities that would only be possible because of the commitment of so many members of our community. And one important takeaway from that was that the Book Nook, which exists at both of the libraries, where items are sold for the benefit of the library, has over the past 10 years generated $1.15 million in sales to benefit our community and supplement the funding that we provide. And I would also point out that our library director was very generous in her recognition of the county's role in funding a world-class library system.
Oh, you're back.
I know.
I knew you couldn't make it through.
I know. I tried. Two things. On March 30th, I went to the retirement of Coach Jones. He started at Lafayette in '73 when Lafayette opened up, and he's been a coach for 45 years and mentored a lot of young men and women across from football to track. And Lawrence Taylor was underneath Coach Jones, and Coach Jones got him interested in football. Look where he went, and so it's amazing the people that were at the event. There was 250, 300 people at the event, and how many what are young men and women my age now were speaking on what Coach Jones had done for them in their lives. And and it's amazing, for 45 years he's been helping our young people in the community. And I mean, hats off to Coach Jones and what a wonderful job he's done for our community, and to be involved in the students' lives and dedicated that much time. It's just amazing. I was proud to be part of that, and took a resolution from our board to that as well, and honored him with that. And he was very happy and said thank you very much for each and everything we do. April 25th, it will be the signing of HR tax project with the Hanford Rose Bridge Tunnel. So if anybody can make it, I think it's 10, I'll send something out saying, I don't think they picked the exact spot, but the governor and all will be there, and the Secretary of Transportation, the commissioner, and everybody will be at the event. So it'll be a big event, $3.6 billion worth of project right there alone. And so if y'all can attend, I'd be honored to have y'all out there. Thank you.
Thank you. On March 29th, Saturday, we had the was it Saturday or Friday? I can't remember. I think it might have been Friday. Vietnam War Veterans Day. That has been recently, just in the last 2 years, designated that day on a national basis. And we did a ceremony with the local Vietnam Veterans chapter out at Veterans Park at the memorial. And I want to thank the county. Jason was there. You had a lot of staff there. The Parks and Rec folks were very, very helpful. We presented over 125 pins to Vietnam veterans at this ceremony, and it was very meaningful to a lot of them. So I want to thank the county for the assistance in that. We will hopefully be doing something like that each March 29th, but we will look forward to assistance. Today, earlier, I managed to participate with the Pure Silk Championship Media Day and got to welcome everybody there to James City County. That is upcoming. It's nice to have that championship here in our county. For public information, there is a Commonwealth Transportation Board public hearing on the FY 2020 to 2025 six-year improvement plan. It's going to be one on Monday, the 18th of April, down in Suffolk at 7311 Burbage Drive. And for those who can't make that one, there is one on Thursday, April 25th in Glen Allen at 4240 Dominion Boulevard.
Mr. Chair and Board, just a few items. Just a reminder of our community budget forum will be held at 6:30 Thursday, April 11th, James City County Recreation Center. So I'd ask the community to come if they have questions, learn about our proposed budget, be a better interactive experience with the board and staff. Also, a reminder of our April 13th, this Saturday, the 41st Annual Spring Cleanup, 7 to 4 p.m., the celebration at Veterans Park at 4:30. And if they want more information, they can call 259-5375, again, 259-5375, and we'd be happy to tie them into that. And then finally, I wanted to mention Social Services is hosting a Landlord Fest in which we're trying to provide coordination with the Greater Virginia Peninsula Housing Consortium at James City County Recreation Center. I believe it's April 25th or 26th. I need to confirm that date for those that are interested. But it is a community resource fair held for the purpose of connecting rental property owners to valuable resources and opportunities to provide housing to our most vulnerable citizens. Again, for more information there, 259-5340, 259-5340. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you. Okay, we are down to the need for a closed session. We have a proposal for under 2.2-3711A8 of the Code of Virginia, consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, in particular a right-of-way known as a portion of Overlook Drive in the Kingspoint subdivision. And I'll promote that motion.
Motion.
Okay. We have
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye. In closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to certify that we only spoke about those items we indicated we would speak about in the closed session.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler? Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, and we are down to adjournment, and we're going to continue the meeting because until 6:30 on April 11th, 2019 for a community budget forum at the James City County Recreation Center. And I'll look for a motion to.
Motion to continue.
All right, we have a motion.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Ms. Sadler? Mr. McGlinnan? Aye. Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye. We will continue.
There are vast differences between the two species in terms of how they select habitat, and that they actually move substantial distances from the pond. So some individuals moved over 100 meters away from where they were breeding, clearly indicating that we need more forest around the pond in order to maintain healthy breeding populations of frogs and toads. Courtney and I received a phone call from students, and they were saying, "We found the snake and we get a signal." And so Courtney then went out, and sure enough, it was a garter snake, which just ate one of our tagged toads.
James City County has attracted founders since the 1600s. But over the past 25 years, James City County has experienced tremendous growth. Growth that has led to thriving businesses and an expanding tax base. Before 1994, there were only a handful of large industries in James City County, but that number has only grown. We have businesses of entrepreneurs who strive to create their own success, like the Williamsburg Jamestown Airport, Nicewood Enterprises, La Tienda,